Hi everyone! Today's video is for week 4 of fabric manipulation, which is going to be for double edged ruffles. So we're going to do gathered and pleated ruffles. So just like single edged ruffles, the first thing you want to decide is how you're going to finish the edges of your ruffles. So you're going to have 2 edges to finish this time. So you have one on the left and one on the right, and your gathering stitch is going to go down the center. Now you can have one edge which is longer than the top, which is called a headed ruffle. So you just can decide how long you want each side to be. They do not have to be even. So there's another good diagram in here on page 57 that is similar to the single edged ruffle diagram that shows you how much seam allowance you need to add and just kind of a visual of your pattern piece. And the amount of fullness that you want is going to be the same thing as when we've gathered before. It's just going to be times 1.5 for slight fullness, times 2 for moderate, times 3 for generous, and 4 or more for abundant. So the next thing you're going to want to think about with your ruffles is what kind of ruffle you're going to do and how you are going to attach it to your base piece. So this one here is just a single stitch down the center. I've also finished off the corners, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and it's attached to the base piece by stitching it down the center with a straight stitch and removing the gathering stitch so that just one single thread is showing. This one has a zigzag over the center gathering stitch. This one is a pleated ruffle and has a tight zigzag stitch or a satin stitch. You can also do a decorative stitch from your machine. This one is 2 stitches that are spaced farther apart, so you have a shirring down the middle. This is a puffed tucked ruffle. So I have done a piece that is folded in half and stitched down the center so that you have 3 separate pieces, and this is not pressed open or flat so that you have a nice puff there. And this is a tucked ruffle. So this one is the same thing as that, except that I have pressed down my folded edge here, and I will show you a demonstration of that. So how the tucked ruffle is achieved is just by folding a piece in half and then doing a gathering stitch along the center of that piece. If you want a puffed tucked ruffle, then you would leave this side unpressed. If you do want a tucked ruffle, then you can press that side so that it has a crease on the top. Then you will open up those 2 sides there. Then you have 3 sections of gathering for your ruffle. On the tucked ruffle, to attach them to your base, you will want to stitch down on either side with a zipper foot so that you can get really close in there and it's not going to be shown. And it does talk a little bit more about these in the book if you need some more information. Another really interesting option for the double edge gather is doing a shell gather like this. So I'm going to do a demonstration of that now. So for this ruffle, you will draw your stitch line in a zigzag pattern with right angles. So from here to here is going to be a right angle. So you want your point to go all the way to the edge of your fabric. And once we gather it, that will become a straight line and you will get a shell shape like it shows in the book here. Now there's shown a couple other different options of shapes that you can do, and it will create sort of a different edge for you. If you want to try those out, you should go for it. So now I'm just going to take my gathering stitch and go right along that stitch line that I have drawn. Then once I have my gathering stitching in, I can pull it and it will turn into a shell shape. And as you can see, the stitching line that you've made has become straight and the edges of your fabric have become scalloped. So there are many different shapes and applications you can do with your double-edged ruffles. You can do sort of these wandering trails, straight lines. This is very, very stacked together ruffles, so the ruffles next to each other have been packed in so that they stand up a bit more. You can do these little spirals in different shapes and fullnesses with different hem edges. And that is the scalloped edge or the shell double ruffle. You can also do the headed ruffles as we talked about before with one long and one short. You can do many rows of gathering stitches in between your short and long ruffles. You can do the pleated ruffles with the same applications. This is a box pleated ruffle, or you can do the knife pleats. And again, a mixture of the two. This is the box pleats sort of stood up against each other so that it looks like this. So that's another fun option. These are some more examples of things that you can do with different shapes of ruffles. So laying them right next to each other so that the texture kind of goes in stripes. You can also stack them really close together so that they become stood up. This is an example of layering ruffles on top of each other, so stacking them. And you could stack them with different widths and different hems and different types of ruffles on top of each other, pleated and gathered. So another thing you're going to want to think about is how are you going to end your ruffles? What is going to be the short hem of your ruffle? So you can stitch the two ends together once you've gathered it, which is what I've done on this one here. So I've just taken the straight corners and stitched those together, and then it creates sort of a leaf shape. You could also choose to hem it the same way that you would be hemming the sides of your ruffles, or you can tuck it under. Another choice is to shape your ruffle to a point before you gather it. So shaping this edge before your gathering stitch goes in, and then your gathering stitch will just go straight on top of that and it will create a point for you. You can also, of course, continue to attach your ruffles together or do a little spiral at the end so that the end is covered up. Those are all options for finishing your double-edged ruffles. Of course, there's more information in your book that I didn't quite get to in this video, but that is the video on double-edged ruffles.